Welcome back to the Philbrook Football Podcast. I am here today with Cameron, and that's just his name, Cameron. Nothing else. There's no Magoofus today because there was no Goofus in this round of the playoffs. It was just craziness all around. So, without further ado, Cameron, not Doofus Magoofus. Why don't you give us the lowdown on the scores?
Yeah, so championship weekend, we had the AFC championship game between the Jaguars and the Patriots. Patriots came back and won 24-20, shutting out the Jags in the second half. And then we had the NFC championship game with the Eagles wasting on the Vikings 38-7.
Yeah, it's I feel like the more surprising score is obviously the Eagles and Vikings game.
And put on a shellacking.
Yeah, it was like I don't think anybody expected, other than Eagles fans, for the Vikings to go in and just get absolutely destroyed by the Eagles. I mean, even you and I in the last week's podcast were talking about how the Vikings should win this game and how, they're the better team and all this stuff. And
they have the number 1 rated defense in the league.
And they decided to play like their worst game of football in the championship round of the playoffs.
Yeah, man. I don't really know. It's really hard to pin it on anything. I mean, Keenum didn't have a great game, but he didn't have like an awful game. He just wasn't. What it was their run game. They really couldn't get anything in the run game. I think McKinnon led the team in receptions and in receiving yards. And I mean, the whole Eagles defense, I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due. They shut down the Vikings offense. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
First drive of the game, the Vikings looked like they were going to be on fire the whole game. I mean, that first drive was just spectacular. Boom, 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 done, touchdown. But after that, they couldn't score. The entire rest of the game, they couldn't score. It was just that first drive. And it was pretty surprising to see. But at the same time, we just have to give that Eagles defense more credit. I mean, it's clear that defense, even with the injuries that they've had, has some serious talent on it. And if anything, that's probably the best unit on that team right now. I mean,
their defensive line is probably the deepest in football right now.
Yeah.
I mean, their front seven is just absolutely ridiculous. They have great rotational players to come in for passing situations, run situations. They have everything they need to, wear out their opponents. And on the other side, they also had the best offensive line this year, and were able to handle Minnesota's pass rush pretty easily. Everson Griffin was really the only one that was consistently getting pressure.
Right.
Danielle Hunter had a good sack at one point
earlier in the game.
Right. But as the game went on, I mean, that Eagles O-line was just manhandling them. They had a great run game. Foles had plenty of time to go through his progressions, and I mean,
even under duress, he even made some serious, big time throws.
Yeah, that throw to Torrey Smith on the flea flicker.
Yeah.
That was a dime, man. That's probably one of the best throws he'll ever make in his career.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy throw, and I mean, the dude had 26 completions on it was 33 attempts.
Right, 33. I'm pretty sure
300 something yards and a couple 3 touchdowns. It was insane.
Yeah, he had a great game.
He had a great game against a great defense. So it was kind of surprising to see just Nick Foles of all quarterbacks just tear up the Vikings defense.
Yeah, I mean, and I've never really thought he was a bad quarterback by any means.
No.
He had a bad year with the Rams, but I mean, every quarterback seemed to have a bad year with Jeff Fisher.
Yeah,
and
you have to really base his stuff off of what he did his first time with the Eagles, and say, okay, this is what he did in an offense that actually functions. Not an offense that is the worst offense in the league.
Right. I think a lot of people were thrown off by the last couple games of the regular season with Foles. I mean, he put up a stinker against Oakland, and then There was that 6-0 game against the Cowboys. That one was really bad, and he just didn't look good in those games. But you got to kind of think of that as like preseason for him. You know,
Yeah.
those were games that they were maybe trying to figure out what they wanted to do with him, what kind of strengths and what kind of weaknesses he had. And the playoffs have basically been his regular season. Like, okay, he had those first 4 games under his belt, and then now he's catching fire in the playoffs, and he's really bought into Doug Peterson's system, and they have a great stable of running backs. I mean, LeGarrette Blount has just been pounding through everyone. Jay Ajayi has been juking defenders out of their shoes, and Corey Clement's a great third down back. I mean, they really have a great offense with or without Carson Wentz. Especially, I mean, Nick Foles is kind of he's a borderline starter for any team. He's definitely top tier backup, but would be a starter with a lot of different teams in the league right now. I mean, maybe not a lot of different teams, but there's a few teams that I'm sure would have loved to have him.
If he was in Buffalo, probably would compete with Tyrod for the starting spot.
Or Miami.
Miami would probably win it. I mean,
he's like I heard somebody say it on the radio the other day. He's like a ballsier Alex Smith. You know, he's pretty good at limiting his turnovers, but he's not afraid to take shots down the field if they're available, or if it's the only thing if it's part of the play design. And I think he would have done fine in Miami. I mean, Jay Cutler isn't all that great, and Nick Foles is probably about right where he is, if not a little bit better, just because he's more conservative. But yeah, Buffalo, I mean, hell, at this point, even Baltimore, he probably would have been better than Flacco. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there really wasn't anyone for Flacco to throw to there. I mean, his receivers are pretty bad. So I have to kind of cut him some slack on at least this year, because he did all right for having a bunch of washed up receivers.
Well, how about Arizona? Arizona would have been a good.
Arizona would have been great for
him.
Cleveland obviously would have been an upgrade over Kaiser.
There are a lot of teams that could use a player like Nick Foles. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I would guess the Eagles, especially if he plays a good game in the Super Bowl, I mean, they'll try to trade him. They'll get something good out of him. Maybe a 3rd round pick or a I mean,
did you see people saying that they should trade Carson Wentz for the 2 first-round picks from the Browns?
Yeah, I saw that. I was
Myles Garrett.
Like, really, you want to bank on Nick Foles? He's like 29 and
people were like
has like pretty much shown his ceiling.
I saw people saying, what franchise wouldn't give up their quarterback for two top 5 picks in a draft and Myles Garrett? And I said, well, not every team has an MVP level quarterback, so I think a lot of teams would give that up. But there's also a lot of teams that wouldn't, because they have a franchise quarterback and they don't want to. They don't want to risk having 2 busts in the first 5 picks, because it happens. Like,
well, yeah, I mean,
you seen Brady Quinn? You seen Matt Leinart? I don't remember when he was picked, but
he was first round. Yeah, so for Arizona.
Whatever. Like, there's players that get picked early on. RG3, like, they bust, and you don't want to invest. You don't want to get rid of a guy that was going to win MVP.
Who almost led the league in touchdown passes and missed the last 4 games.
Had he not missed the ending of the season.
Oh, absolutely. He would. I think he would have easily thrown for over 40 touchdowns. Yeah. I mean, he was rolling in that system, man. Yeah, people just like to say stuff like that, so you argue with them. But I mean, there's no way that they would trade Carson Wentz. It's like, yeah, Nick Foles may have gotten us to the Super Bowl, but one, he's 29 years old and has shown little development. I mean, he is who he is. He's not getting all that much better. Right. I mean, he's not one of those guys you can just throw into any system and he's an instant upgrade. No. You have to have a good system around him. Whereas Carson Wentz showed a massive leap from year 1 to year 2 and is only trending upwards. Why in God's name would you ever? Yeah, people.
How much do you want to bet the Patriots get Nick Foles for like a second round pick?
I don't know why they would. I would assume that. I think if they are gonna go with, I mean, Brady's probably gonna play for a couple more years, depending on his health.
I'm giving him 2, if I'm being honest.
I would say probably 2 more years is likely. Same with Drew Brees. Mm-hmm. I would guess. I mean, he might only have 1 year left. I don't know.
It's very possible Drew Brees doesn't play.
I think he'll want to play the next couple of years. So next year for sure he'll break the pass yardage. I think he's only like 1,700 yards away from being the all-time leader in pass yards, and then he's still got a few touchdowns to go. I think it would probably take him 2 seasons to pass Peyton Manning for the touchdowns record, but he probably wants it, I'm sure. But either way, they're probably going to keep Hoyer as their backup in New England unless they hit gold in the draft like they did with Garoppolo
and Brady.
And Brady.
If they draft Bomb Treaty
and Leon Sandcastle in the first,
no, in the 7th.
I would expect them to probably pick a quarterback in this draft. I don't think they're going to go for a guy like Nick Foles. I think Nick Foles will get a better deal from another team who wants to, develop a quarterback. Arizona would be a great place for him to go.
Yeah.
And then I would assume Arizona is also going to draft a quarterback. They're probably going to draft one. They have to.
Their starter just retired. There's no way they're rolling with Stanton and Gabbert.
No, they're gonna. But I mean, there's a lot of free agent quarterbacks or quarterbacks that could be free agents that would be upgrades for them. I mean, they're kind of like the retirement home for quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Lately it seems, but
they might get Alex Smith.
They could get a guy like Alex Smith, depending on what the Jags do. They could be in the play to try to get a guy like Blake Bortles. I mean, there's a lot of guys that. Keenum, Bridgewater, Sam Bradford, we don't know what Minnesota's going to do with all of those guys. There's actually a decent free agent quarterback crop this year. Cousins is still, I don't know if Arizona has the space for him, but Cousins is going to be hitting the market.
I bet you they have the space for him. They don't have a lot of mega contracts on that team right now, so.
Yeah, I would think that Cousins is going to either re-sign with the Redskins on a long-term deal, or he's going to go to Cleveland with some massive deal, like close to, $175 million or something like that on a 5-year deal. And then that would be ideal for Cleveland if they can land Kirk Cousins and then trade back from the first pick, because they'll get a good pick from that. And then at 4, either draft best player available or get Barkley. And then with wherever they trade back to, they could get a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick or Bradley Chubb. I mean, there's a lot of options for them, but they would need to, I think the only way it would be worth it is if they get Kirk Cousins. I don't think any of those other quarterbacks would be worth not just drafting a quarterback instead. Like a guy like Alex Smith, what you're going to get out of Alex Smith. You know that he's going to manage the game for you. He's going to win you a bunch of games, not really lose them for you, but he's never going to take you to that next level.
Right.
I mean, that's why they drafted Mahomes. And I don't think that it would be worth Cleveland blowing their first. I mean, they have 2 picks in the top 4. That's
knowing Cleveland, though. They're going to do something to mess it up. I mean, they always do. They are put in these prime positions to make a move and do something right, and they do something like draft Johnny Manziel, and it's like,
well, I mean, they couldn't have known that. Well, I mean, I guess they could have known that he was, but I mean, and they probably should have known that he was going to have partying issues and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, they've built a solid defense. At least they have good pieces on defense that they can build around, and Myles Garrett was a great pick for them. I mean, it was a pretty obvious pick, but still a good pick nonetheless. And Yeah, we'll see what happens. The Browns, I don't know if we've been saying this for a long time or if this is really true to this year, but I feel like this is the make it or break it year. If they don't have an all-star offseason this season, then there's no hope for them for the rest of their franchise days. I
think this might be the year where
it's make it or break it.
Yeah, if they go winless again, I think they might have to like relocate, or at least those talks will at least start after that.
Yeah, which is
because you cannot take that roster. Look, that roster is not bad enough to go winless. Okay, in a division where you have the Bengals, you should not be going winless.
And the Ravens, not unbeatable.
Their defense is good most of the time. They have games where they just completely fall asleep, but most of the time their defense is really good, and their offense isn't completely crap. I mean, it's not fun to watch by any means right now, but it's but these two teams that are not elite teams right now. Say right now before any Ravens fans get all mad. You shouldn't be going winless. You should at least have one win in 16 games, and you can't even get that. That's pretty bad. And after so many years of just being garbage, I mean, it's people bring up the Cleveland has a good history. And it's they had a good history in the 60s.
And that team is now the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, it's not even the Cleveland Browns. So it's not even
the same one. So what even is the history there? What are you holding on to in Cleveland that you're saying, boy howdy, how could we ever ditch the name Browns? What does that even mean? You have an orange.
They just need.
You just have a blank orange helmet, and that's your mascot, the Browns.
They need a maybe not relocation, but rebranding. And they could call themselves the Steamers and put the poop emoji on the side and be called the Cleveland Steamers.
Yeah, that'll attract free agents.
That'd be fans would go watch. They'd sell out just to have their fans go, yeah, the Cleveland Steamers. That'd be great.
Cleveland Steamers. Yeah, that'd be something.
Holy cow. So what game were we talking about? The Eagles and Vikings?
Well, we're talking about Nick Foles,
quarterbacks.
Got a little off track. It's okay.
All that kind of stuff.
Nobody listens.
Let's quickly just talk about maybe not quickly, I guess. Just talk about the Jags and Patriots game. So the Jags, for the first half of this game, or at least the first quarter and a half, seemed to be on the path towards domination.
Yeah, they're destroying the Patriots.
They looked great. The Patriots offense looked completely off, unable to do anything. And then just like every single team that plays against the Patriots and gets a lead, they start playing not to lose. And they just go
very conservative
mode, hoping they can hoping they can just run out the clock and get it over with. And you have to just, I'm sure every pundit and every analyst has said, you have to keep attacking, blah, blah, blah. But it's so true. That's the only way you can keep winning against the Patriots is if you continue to attack. You can't just sit back and be defensive because, I mean, look at last year's Super Bowl, 28-3. Okay. And then the Patriots come back and win that game. And it's just, if they can come back from that, you have to know you can't play conservatively.
Well, I like to talk in this instance about the Super Bowl where Seattle was playing the Broncos. Okay, that game, Seattle came out on fire and never stopped once. They just kept putting it on them, and it just turned into this massive blowout, and it was hilarious.
Until Tavares Jackson came in. Then they slowed it down a little bit.
Until Tavares Jackson came out when they were up 35 points. Yeah.
Tavares Jackson.
But that's how you win a Super Bowl. That's how you win important games, is you go out and dominate the entire time. When you have a good first half, okay, you had a good first half. They can also have a good second half. And if you have a scoreless second half, you are putting yourself in a terrible position. You have to keep attacking. Do you have to keep taking super huge deep shots down the... No, especially with Blake Bortles. I mean, I don't think people were expecting the Jaguars to go out in the second half and just keep lighting it up, But you have to stay aggressive at least. You have to keep putting a little bit of pressure on them because they're going to start playing up 8 men in the box. And if you just keep running because you're like, well, this will take 35 seconds off the game clock. Okay, that's great and all, but then you're giving them the ball back. Yeah. In a minute and a half because you didn't get a first down. You went 3 and out and said, "Oh, it took a minute and a half off the game clock."
And your defense is playing as great as their defense is. You're playing the Patriots. You're playing the hardest offense to play against in the league. You got to sustain some drives. They went scoreless in the second half. They didn't score another point after the second half or after the first half, and you just can't do that to your defense. The defense was playing lights out against the Patriots. They were getting turnovers. They were, stopping them on third downs. I mean, they were killing it, and you need to keep that up by letting them stay off the field as much as possible. And they just couldn't sustain anything. And I'm not convinced that Leonard Fournette is this like elite back that everybody is trying to say he is. Like I was watching the game and. I don't know if the Patriots were just really I'm sure they were just really trying to take away that run game, but man, I just felt like he would get like 2 or 3 yards like every carry. That was it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's SEC backs are kind of known for just being like powerful downhill running backs. They're not really known for like their vision.
Well, there's exceptions.
Trent Richardson. Like, I mean, it's
on the flip side of that. I mean, look at Todd Gurley.
Well, sure. That's what I'm saying. They're not known for it typically. Todd Gurley is his own monster of a player. Like, he's his own thing. Like, you look at all the other big ones that have come out, Eddie Lacy, Trent Richardson, even Derrick Henry at times, not a lot of vision. Like, these guys are just really powerful bruisers. But when it comes to having to like, okay, if there's a guy here in the hole I'm going in, I better try to truck him for half a yard instead of just, I don't know, cut into the wide open lane where there's a safety instead of a linebacker.
Well,
I'll take that truck instead of the linebacker,
they can do that kind of stuff in college, especially these SEC backs that are like the best backs in college. And they all they have to do is be more athletic. I mean, Derrick Henry made his living off of being, 6'3", 250 pounds.
And fast.
And just, and running a 4.5. I mean, in college, you're going to annihilate every linebacker. You're bigger than some defensive lineman in college.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't really do that in the NFL considering it's all the top tier guys. But I mean, the Leonard Fournette, I mean, I think that he could turn into a great back, and I think he probably will.
Yeah,
but right now, I feel like
I
think he's just a little overrated, and everybody overhypes the rookies because of what Zeke did on his first year in the league and what he's continued to do, what Todd Gurley is doing, what, all of these rookie running backs are, Jordan Howard.
Well, this year alone, with what Kareem Hunt was doing, leading the league in rushing, you had Alvin Kamara coming on and just doing dual threat galore, and you had Dalvin Cook before he got injured. He was doing phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all these rookies were just going nuts, and Fournette was doing good early in the season too. Like, it's been a really good stretch of like 4 years of really good rookie running backs, but.
And that trend, I don't think is going to stop next. I think next
year
Saquon Barkley is going to be a great back.
And I think
Darius Guice will be a good running back. I think there's a lot of good depth in this draft class that for some guys that could be starters later on in their careers, but for now will be like great rotational players. Running backs are most effective, I think, when they're younger and they have less wear and tear on them. I mean, look at guys like even like Melvin Gordon. He's a great running back, but I guarantee you, when his contract's up, unless Philip Rivers leaves town, I don't think they're going to re-sign him because, I mean, look at all the carries that guy got in college, and then all the carries he's had in his NFL career so far, and he's had a couple of injuries, and he, I believe, was a senior when he left Wisconsin, so he's already probably 25, 26 at this point.
He's 25.
I would guess that. I mean, that's just how it is. That there's a reason why the Steelers aren't willing to re-sign Le'Veon Bell, even though he's the best running back in the league right now. It's because they know, well, in a couple of years, we're giving you 200 carries a year or whatever, and it's, teams just aren't willing to pay these running backs a second contract.
Well, because they keep seeing all these, rookies coming out and dominating the league, and they say, we could probably find a guy like that too. Like,
right.
So,
and even guys like, P. Ryan for the Redskins, he wasn't playing terrible, and he was all right. He was effective enough
for playing behind a line that pretty much had all their starters injured forever. Like, and he did pretty good.
And you can find a guy like that in the 4th round, everywhere. So, I mean, I don't know. Either way, crap, where is I going with this?
It was your hot take with Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's just a little overrated right now because he's got the name recognition and the Jags played really well this year. Mm-hmm. But he just barely went over 1,000 yards. I think he only had like a game or two over 100 yards, not including the playoffs. Like in the regular season, he only had a game or two over 100 yards. Every other game, he didn't reach 100 yards.
Yeah, I can't recall. I feel like he had more over 100 yards. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
I think he only had a couple, and he wasn't asked to do a whole lot in the passing game. So whether that's indicative of his passing skills or his catching skills or not, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'd call it a hot take, more of like a lukewarm take. I just don't know if he's.
Well, you're just skeptical about how good he really is.
Yeah. And maybe the Jags, I'm sure like he would be great with a team like the Eagles or the Cowboys who have great, places with great offensive lines. He would put up numbers, but I mean, if he was some elite back, I think he would have more than what he had this year with the Jags. I don't know. That's just my thoughts right now. I mean, next year will really be a proven year for him.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say about him, was that we have to, he's a rookie, and you can't just judge someone off the rookie year, because there's plenty of players, there's plenty of athletes in general that had subpar rookie years, and you said, okay, I don't know if this guy is as good as everyone says he is, and then they explode. Like there's a lot of NBA players that were like that, where like Russell Westbrook had, his rookie year was like okay, he was a starter or whatever. Didn't do like a ton, and then ends up getting like the most triple doubles in a single season,
right.
A couple years later. So like, you never know with players. Todd Gurley, his rookie year went nuts. His sophomore season was pretty bad. Like everyone was like, oh, okay, maybe he's not as good as we thought he was. And then this year he comes back and destroys everyone. So
yeah.
You be the judge of that. But my biggest takeaway from the Jags and Patriots game was more of the fact that the Patriots are very much beatable. Like the reason the Patriots keep getting past these teams is because, one, they get less penalties, and before someone says, oh, you're going to tell it's rigged. I'm not saying things are rigged. Okay, maybe it is. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I don't work in the NFL, and I don't work with officiating. So I can't go out here and say it is rigged like a lot of ignorant people do. They just go out and say, it's rigged. I know it because I'm mad. Like,
everybody wants to point a finger somewhere.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? You don't know. You don't have facts. You have opinions, and you are inferring. There's a difference. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that the Patriots have one of the greatest coaches, if not the greatest of all time. Okay. He's going to prepare his players mentally to not get a bunch of stupid penalties. Like, hello. He gets rid of players that get a lot of stupid penalties. So he's going to prepare them. Okay. So you're getting out coached. You're getting mentally, you're just not even there compared to how the Patriots are. And it hurts to say these things because I don't like the Patriots. We're Seahawks fans. We don't like the Patriots.
You don't have to like them, but you have to be able to respect what they do.
And you have to understand how they do it. Instead of saying it's rigged and they're cheating. Okay, there's been things in the past that have come up, yada, yada. But right now, they're out coaching teams. And their system is working perfectly because it's so easy with their system to make adjustments. Because they just say, because so many of those receivers, as it's been made more kind of the surface more, as those receivers just kind of run routes and
based on the coverage,
and Tom Brady gets in the ball, because that's like how their system works. It's not call this play and then Tom Brady has to audible everyone and call a whole different play. It's just like, hey, you see that coverage there? Oh yeah, I see it. I'm gonna make eye contact with you, and you're gonna know mentally exactly what I'm doing. Like, that's their system just works. And so even with this crazy defense, they're gonna find ways to score. So you have to take it to them. Like we were saying, you can't just stop being aggressive. The Patriots are beatable. They make mistakes. Tom Brady is not going to complete 50 of 50 passes every game. They're going to make mistakes, and you have to capitalize on them.
Yep.
And that's when you were talking about how the Jags didn't score the rest of the second half. A lot of that came because people were praising Blake Bortles a lot, because they were saying, he had this, like, one of the best games of his career, understandably so, against a good team and against a defense coming out playing with fire, trying to keep them from scoring. And a lot of that fire came in the second half for the Patriots. And a lot of the reasons that they didn't score was because Blake Bortles missed throws when they needed them the most. He made a lot of throws early in the game. He was efficient the second half, but when they really needed, like third down, second down and 13, when you need a good chunk play, incompletion. Now it's 3rd and 13. And now you're like, oh God, like now he's got to throw 13 yards and it's not going to work. Like, you have to be efficient in those moments too. You can't just be good on first down and get 8 yards and then run it 2 yards. And okay, now I have another first down. Now I'll throw it for 9 yards and get another first down for 1 yard run. Like, you have to be able to make those tougher throws the whole game. And so that was my biggest takeaway was Patriots are beatable. The Jags they just lost it in the second half.
Well, yeah, and they couldn't run the ball in the second half. That goes along with what I was saying earlier, which is that, I'd see Fournette getting these two-yard runs, these little 3-yard runs, go up to the line of scrimmage and fall down or get tackled, and
right.
That there's a place for those kind of plays, and that's fine to have plays like that. They wear defense out, they make you come up to the line of scrimmage better, but Blake Bortles isn't a guy that can beat, one-on-one coverage very often. Mm-hmm. He's not throwing into tight windows. Sure, he's got great arm strength and he has some accuracy here and there that's, really spot on, but he's not consistent enough of a thrower to really take advantage of a 3rd and 7, a third and 8. He's not consistent enough to pick those up all the time. So, they just couldn't get their run game going, and that really hurt them. But Jags are really talented. I think they'll be back in the playoffs next year. I don't think that we'll see how that division is with all the quarterbacks healthy. Titans should have a better offense. The Texans, could be ridiculous next year.
It's going to be a really good division, because if Andrew Luck does return and can stay healthy, the Colts with him and Josh McDaniels and a good, offseason and draft to get some good picks. That even if they draft a quarterback that isn't Andrew Luck, they can still do a lot of damage with Josh McDaniels there, and they can run that system that he likes to run, and not whatever Chuck Pagano was running, where it's a 3-yard out route to T.Y. Hilton and 1,800 incompletion, like nothing.
Yeah, just like no run game and vertical plays.
Yeah. Schottenheimer's like, hey, my quarterback sucks. I'm really trying here.
Frank Gore.
I have a super old running back who has a couple games left in the tank.
And Marlon Mack, who's like whatever, and then 2 Seattle Seahawks on IR.
Yeah.
And
he's like, I have nothing to work with, Chuck, and he's like, we'll get it done. It's like,
that division will be crazy if all the quarterbacks can come back healthy. Deshaun Watson and the Texans looked like they were going to be on a tear, and if they can have J.J. Watt back with Whitney Merciless, get some better cornerback health, they'll be right back in it. The Titans with Mariota, Derrick Henry taking over the reins, they'll get some defensive help in the draft, maybe free agency. They just hired Mike Vrabel, who's a great defensive coach, and he's trying to get a better offense around Mariota as far as like the system goes. He hired his name Matt Day. He was the quarterback that at New Hampshire where Chip Kelly was that broke like all these insane FCS records.
Oh, I don't even know.
When Chip Kelly like first got to college ranks and annihilated everyone, and that's when Oregon was like, oh, hey, you want to like come work for us, dude? And he elevated that program with Darren Thomas. I mean, that, not saying that Day is going to run the same exact offense, but they're going to have a lot of similar concepts. Mariota's going to do just fine in, because that he's going to be playing in a system that plays to his strengths. So
that works.
Yeah, that division could be the best in football next year. I mean, look at the NFC South this year. They sent three teams to the playoffs. I could see the AFC South doing the same thing. I mean, with the Titans and Jags made it this year, and Houston looked like they were going to make it if Deshaun Watson had stayed healthy. I mean, they were 3-4 with him, but I mean, they put 38 against Seattle back when Seattle had like everyone healthy, and they were like the number one scoring offense, while Deshaun Watson, they could be really great. I mean, yeah, man, it could be reminiscent of
It could.
the NFC West just a few years back when
I knew you were gonna say that.
the Rams were like 7-9 or whatever, and that was the worst team in the division.
Yeah.
I mean, they could be pretty damn good.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have to temper our expectations a little bit on Deshaun Watson. Just on sample size alone, we have to take okay, that was every team trying to figure him out and see what can Deshaun Watson do. Now they are more aware, like, all right.
He can take over this game if he wants to.
He can take it over. We have to treat him like a legit elite quarterback until he proves us otherwise that he's not, Yeah. That's so
he'll have some growing pains, I'm sure, just like Dak Prescott did, just like Russell Wilson did, just like all these, every quarterback has come in, they all have their growing pains, and I'm sure Deshaun Watson's going to have them, and people are going to see headlines as Deshaun Watson really an elite quarterback, all this stuff, and it's I don't know, man. I mean, next year's practically going to be like the first half of the year is going to be like a half of his rookie season,
right,
and then he'll find his groove into this second season. But yeah, I mean, we'll temper our expectations. I mean, but man, those are a few magical games while he was in.
Oh yeah, and these are things we'll talk more about in the off season. Just kind of outlooks for teams going into next year. All these kind of things, especially after a year with so many injuries. There's a lot that we'll be able to talk about in future podcasts on the off season. But with this one, I do want to give our Super Bowl picks, because we have the Eagles and Patriots playing in Minnesota, where the Vikings are probably not going to be super nice to Eagles fans based on how Eagles fans treated the Vikings in their home stadium. So, I mean, what do you think? Who do you think is going to win?
I mean, I got to go with the Patriots. I mean, they've been here so many times. This is what Belichick and Brady's like 6th Super Bowl, 8th, 6th. This, I think. Yeah, and it's like there's just no. This is. You want to say that it isn't just another game, but I mean they were just here last year and a couple of years before that and a couple of years before that.
Well, they're used to playing until February.
Yeah,
they are used to that.
They're used to it. They've been here before. Most of these players are completely bought into the system and know that, they just need to get it done. Whereas the Eagles aren't as experienced in the playoffs. They're not used to playing this late into the season. It's not a dig at them. It's just reality. Yeah. Eagles have a great system. They have a great offense. Very dynamic offense. I mean, obviously there's a chance they can win because they're here, just like any other team that would be in the Super Bowl. They're here. It means that they're clearly one of the best teams in the NFL, and they're set up all right to beat the Patriots. Like I said earlier, they have a great defensive front, and everybody knows the only way you can beat Brady is to pressure him. And since they have so much depth, they can really take it to him if they need to. But I just cannot doubt the Patriots. Just like I said last week against the Jags, like the Jags are set up to win, and they could win this game, but you cannot doubt the Patriots. It is not wise. Would I bet money on this game? No, I would not bet money on this game. Every Super Bowl they've won has been less than 6 points. I mean, the game, or 6 points or less. The only reason that and that was last year against the Falcons, because they won in overtime on a touchdown. But every other Super Bowl has been decided by 6 points or less. And so I would not bet money on this game, but I'm not going to bet against this Patriots.
Yeah, well, I'll be the hot take guy then.
All right.
And talk a little bit about why I think the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl.
Spicy.
So here's the thing, okay? What we've been saying for a while, and what a lot of teams have been noticing, is that pressuring Brady on the interior is how you get him. Just like any pocket passing quarterback, pressuring on the interior is where you can really take him out of the game. And Philadelphia is really good at pressuring on the interior.
Oh, absolutely.
They've got guys that can just destroy in the middle.
Well, Fletcher Cox is right up there with Aaron Donald as far as interior pressure guys go.
So it's not like this, obscure idea. I mean, look at what Jacksonville was able to do for at least that first half against Brady. You can beat the Patriots. It's all about staying mentally in the game. You can't just be content with your 3-score lead. You can't do that, especially in the Super Bowl. So I think so long as the Philadelphia can get pressure early and on the inside, I think that containing, at least Brady, containing him to under 300 yards is certainly in the books if they can get that pressure early. It's really, for them, it's all about no turnovers. Can't have interceptions all over the place. You can live with one, like depending on where it is, obviously. But you can't give the Patriots more and more opportunities to be on the field.
Oh yeah.
And that's what Jacksonville did. They gave them tons of opportunities because they kept going 3 and out and not getting first downs. Philadelphia can't do that. They're going to have to stay in attack mode. They need to learn from the Falcons' mistake the last year in the Super Bowl, where they just played conservative. It wasn't as much of a running conservative attack, which with their great running backs they should have done, but that's in the past. It was a lot of the throws were conservative. They weren't as like just aggressive, and because when they were aggressive they were fine.
Yeah.
So with the Eagles, they don't have Matt Ryan, they have Nick Foles. So they need to figure out some things that are going to work against the Patriots defense, make Nick Foles feel comfortable early in the game, because if they get into his head, remember, this is a guy that just was contemplating retirement not too long, a couple weeks ago. Okay. Like the dude was like on the edge of saying, I don't want to play football anymore. So who knows what his true mental strength is, like what his breaking point is. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens with him. But I think because of how aggressive and just that great pass rush that the Eagles have, I think their defense is going to keep them in this game. And so long as, here's what I should say about the offense and what I've been trying to figure out how I want to say about their offense. Everybody prides the Patriots on being able to take away your top weapon. Now you tell me, who's the top weapon on the Eagles offense?
Right now, I'd probably say Alshon Jeffrey, but Zach Ertz is probably right there with him.
And then what about, Jay? What about LeGarrette Blount? I mean, what about all these other guys
they have a very dynamic offense. That's their greatest strength, is that they don't have just one guy they can go to. They have a lot of different options.
Because the Vikings did a good job of keeping Alshon Jeffrey from going nuts in this game. I mean, he had that bomb. He got open on a deep pass, but other than that, they were doing a good job of keeping him contained for a decent. Even
well, I don't know about that. I mean, him and Torrey Smith combined for like 150 passing yard or receiving yards, and all 3 of Nick Foles' touchdowns. So it's obvious that they want to get those 2 guys the ball in the receiving game,
right? But like that's kind of what I'm saying is like, it wasn't just Alshon Jeffrey taking over. It was Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith and all these other guys taking over. And that's how the Eagles keep winning, is by having the team take over. So you can do that against the Patriots, because the Patriots saw the Jaguars and said, we're not worried about Blake Bortles. We're just going to stop Leonard Fournette. Your receivers are bad. Even though they had Allen Hurns back, he hadn't played much in weeks. Marquise Lee hadn't played much in weeks. So you had rusty receivers that you were hoping could just like lead you to a win.
Keelan Cole is like their best receiver right now. That guy's actually really good.
He's really good. So with that being said, they just zoned in on Fournette and held him under 100 yards and, ended up winning the game. You can't do that against the Eagles, because you zone in on Blunt. Well, then they'll put in Ajayi. Then they'll put in Clement. Then they'll toss it to Ertz. I mean, they have some great weapons that I think that's going to give them the edge because of how good their defense is compared to the Patriots. I think it's going to be a great game overall. I mean, it's hard for me to say, Eagles are going to definitively beat the Patriots, because like you said, you can't bet against the Patriots.
They've just been here too many times, man.
It's that what we were talking about early in the playoffs, is that playoff experience, and they have a ton of it, and the Eagles have none of it. So we'll see what happens. But I am rooting for the young guys in this one. I'm just rooting for this Eagles team to just upset and just knock them off their throne a little bit, so that way we don't have to hear anything about the Patriots for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like every year the NFC throws their best guy against the Patriots and hopes, to knock off the champion.
Well, the Patriots have the easiest route to look at the teams they had to beat this year. Come on. You had to beat Tennessee and Jacksonville. Those are some big perennial playoff threats there. Boy, howdy, did you have a tough road to the playoffs. You had to play in a division with Josh McCown and Jay Cutler. Boy, howdy. And Tyrod Taylor. Boy, was that a hard one to get a top 4 seed. You have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. Like, it kind of helps that they get this like cupcake season almost every year. Like, not to like completely discredit them, but look at the teams in the NFC South. All battling each other. You have divisions that are seriously competitive that, compared to a division like the AFC, whatever East that they're in,
and it doesn't seem to matter. They keep getting here to the Super Bowl and they keep winning them
because they are a good team.
Yeah.
But the amount of like crazy, like grinded out battle testing games that they have to play every year it's not the same. Their regular season worries are never really worries to begin with. So
yeah, we'll see how this game goes. Like you said, I think it is going to be a great game. It should be great to watch. But I think we can be done for today. We'll have another week to see, what kind of stuff develops. I know that Gronkowski right now is out with a concussion.
Right.
There could be a couple other players that their status is up in the air, including a couple of players on defense for the Eagles. So we'll see how that goes. And if there's any developments throughout the week, we'll be sure to keep an eye on those. But
and the Pro Bowl is this weekend, but what analysis?
Not really much to talk about.
Maybe next week we can talk a little bit about it. But right now there's nothing to talk about with the Pro Bowl other than these are the guys that made it in.
I am excited to watch I love the skills challenge.
I like all the stuff that isn't the actual game.
Yeah, the actual game is usually not all that exciting to watch. There's usually a big hit or two just to spice things up a bit.
Yeah, and then the last part of the game is usually fun. I'll enjoy watching Russell Wilson. That'll be fun.
Oh yeah,
that's gonna be. Russell Wilson, the Pro Bowl is always fun because giving him a Pro Bowl offensive line.
There's a couple years ago
he turns into a god.
Yeah, there was a couple years ago he was in the Pro Bowl and was throwing these bombs to DeAndre Hopkins, and I'm peeing myself at the thought of having Russell Wilson with DeAndre Hopkins. As much as I love Dougie B, I would love to. I can't even imagine Russell Wilson throwing to a guy like DeAndre. But so that's always exciting to watch. Oh wow, this is what Seattle could be if they would just put together a freaking good
get all
offense.
The best players in the NFC.
Yeah. Oh man,
Right. Well, that yeah, like Cameron was saying,
we'll have some in-depth analysis on the Pro Bowl next week. I'm
yeah,
sure.
that's gonna wrap up this week's podcast. So,
Yep. Thanks for listening.
if you listened,
Which you may have.
You might not have.
I think our wild card weekend one didn't have any views at all.
Might not have. I don't know. But either way, we're just gonna keep making them. And hey, if you listen, then great.
Someday in the future, when we're like actual analysts, and
these won't exist anymore.
they'll still be here, archived, and people will listen to them and be like, "Oh, this is where they got their roots."
Yeah.
Hello, future listeners. Maybe.
Hello, future me.
Listening
Teaching
back.
kids in 5th grade still at 48, not doing a sports show.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for listening to the Philbrook Football Podcast.
It's the Philbrook Football Podcast.
Yay.